Hi, I'm Brian. Welcome to Autogefuhl. We are here today in Hamburg to bring you a workshop from Volkswagen to show us all the new details on the latest version of the 8th generation of the Volkswagen Passat. Has anything changed? Well, let's take a closer look and find out. Being a refresh, there are of course some details that are carried over from previous generations, so it's important to see as many as we can in one face, and this is a good representation of it. At first glance, when you take a really good look at this front end, you're going to see a lot of similarities that you recognize. That's always connected to the brand tightening, so the lines are looking more and more similar. And although we are missing a couple of distinct features, there is a lot here that's reminiscent of the Arteon, and that's very much an intentional move. We now have redesigned headlights in the front of the grille, and they're going to be full LED, and that comes as standard. If you want to spend a little bit more, you can have matrix LED. We'll look into that a little later on. If you're really interested in Volkswagen lighting design, check out our video we did when we took a behind-the-scenes look on lighting at Volkswagen. Some really interesting detail in there. What you need to know for the time being is that in terms of sharpness and contrast, the new LEDs are really, really good. But if you want the additional smart control, go with the full matrix. What does that mean in layman's terms? Well, it allows you the functionality. For example, if you're driving head-on into traffic on a country road, the matrix will adjust the light so it will create special blackout zones where you don't want to dazzle oncoming drivers or highlight things it thinks you need to be aware of, like pedestrians or deers by the side of the road. It really is the next generation of lighting technology. We've come over to the Alltrack to show you the side profile. Now we have new wheel design available back here from 17 to 19 inches, so there's a good range to choose from. The Alltrack now has 17 centimeters of ground clearance. I think this is going to be an extremely popular choice with executives who can be sold on the idea of a Passat but still want something just a little bit different. It's a really nicely finished car. A little off-road, not too off-road. Now, if you're wondering how this compares in terms of space and size to its other competitors, I think it's worth pointing out that the estate version of this car is the more popular of the two between this and the sedan. If you really want killer space, the number one class leader is still going to be the Škoda Superb, but this provides more than enough space, really, for most people by a long way. For the rear end, we've come over to the GTE. Now, the big news with the GTE is the fully redesigned electric performance. You can now get 55 kilometers on purely electric charge. Now, if that number sounds a bit confusing to you in terms of what's gone before, it really does depend on how you measure it. So they're also stating that you can have a 70-kilometer electric range. Okay, potato, potato. I think the important takeaway here is that you will be able to have more enough purely electric drive to get you to and from most regular jobs. And that's important because it does represent a significant saving on fuel. Now, of the 3 different platforms, you can have them in 3 different trim levels. There's the base, then there's the business, then there's the elegance. If you want the R-line styling, you have to go with one of the top 2 trims. But you can see here how the new design language is relating to all of them. Does this look familiar to you down here? This styling is very much in keeping with, say, the Arteon or the new Touareg or the T-Cross, and. Again, we're looking at the way that all of these lines are coming together. I think it looks really elegant and stylish, and it matches very nicely what we see here in terms of a new design language working on the lights. Now, this you might recognize from the Touareg. This is where we have a change, I guess, almost in philosophy about how we interact with our rear lights. As you can see, the motives at the moment are all this way. If you apply the brake light, these all drop off and you see the mirrored effect here, here, and here. and also, of course, up top here. The reason for that is in their research, what they found out is that changing the appearance has a much more striking effect than changing the brightness of the lights. Let's take a look inside and see what's changed in here. You don't get to be one of the most bought company cars ever without offering an almost bewildering array of different options. So I always say to people when they're considering a Passat, if you don't like the interior or one aspect or another, take another look. You'll find something that's right for you. There are so many different ways you can style up this car. You will find something you like. Now, again, on the downside of that, you might find a lot of the end product is a little bit on the bland side. But for my taste, I would sacrifice that additional style every time for practicality. And because of the vast quantity in which these have sold throughout the years, every single detail is very well considered and very effective at doing the job that it needs to do. That said, we have got some changes happening within this car in this generation, or at least this version of this generation. This is the top model, and that means we have an 11.7-inch digital cockpit here and a 9.2-inch screen here. This unit is known as the MIB3. That is the latest digital infotainment unit that Volkswagen currently stock. It only comes in the top 2 digital offerings for this car. Also new for this generation, we have a brand new steering wheel. Now, as we already mentioned, this is capacitive. That means that the system knows if you're holding it and the way in which you are holding it. Now, this technology is really quite new, so we don't yet have a full list of understandings of how this can be integrated into the system to deliver us all kinds of effective things. But what it does know, what it does mean is that the car is able to get a lot more feedback from you as a driver, and that can only be a good thing. Now, if we go to select the individual settings, we can see that we have a significant change here. You might know this from other Volkswagen systems. This allows us lots of different levels of customization. So somewhere on here, you are going to be able to find your driving style nicely matched. What actually happens when we're changing this? Well, we are changing the amount of oil that goes into those dampers. So it really does change the way that the car dynamic feels when you're driving it. And hopefully you'll be able to find something that is absolutely right for you. Back here is really comfortable, and there is nothing here to bother you whatsoever. You could drive for many happy hours back here. The seats are really firm and nicely supportive. I have plenty of leg room. Look at my headspace. I'm 5'10" or 178 centimeters. I could sit back here for hours and hours and hours, and that is the whole point of the design of this vehicle. Nothing here really is going to massively impress anyone in terms of styling. But honestly, the number one thing you're ever going to be doing in a car is sitting in it or driving it. And the great thing about the back of this car is I can tell you 100% honestly, it is really comfortable back here. In 45 years of production, you would think Volkswagen would have figured out a couple of items on this car that they really, really knew what they were doing with. And I don't think that's anywhere better illustrated than this boot. Not only is it nicely large enough, but it will take from 650 to 1,780 litres of cargo room. Is that the biggest within its segment? Nope, that's the Skoda, but look at it. I think there is plenty enough space there for anything you could reasonably want to fit in the back of here. And as a reps car or just a family car with a dog in the back, come on, do you really need more room than this? But it's not only the space that it offers, it's the practicality as well. It's very nicely thought out. You have luggage Holding points exactly where you need them to be. Nice, discreet, extra storage areas. I really am a big fan of these things. That folds your rear seats flat from the rear without having to mess around getting to them from up there. And everything is just exactly where you need it to be and works in a very straightforward, effortless way. Also have this nice zero depth entry load in the rear. So again, there's nothing here that's going to blow your mind radically, but you know what? It all just works. And that's what I'm looking for from a boot. It won't come as a massive surprise to you to learn that the Passat is available with an absolute myriad or blizzard of different control systems, but what has changed is the way that they interact together. Volkswagen are now calling this IQ Drive, and basically these systems are now all talking to each other, and that really does change a couple of the features in which the car works. Let's take a look under the bonnet of the GTE and see what's going on underneath there. Well, what you are looking at is a 1.4 litre TSI petrol engine combined with an electric motor. That gives us a power output of 150 horsepower from the petrol and an additional 115 from the electric. When combined together, that makes for a total of a 218 horsepower total power output. Now, you can have your choice of gearbox with the platforms, but if you're going to go with the more powerful engines, you automatically get the 7-speed DSG. It's very refined after all of this time and works really nicely for putting that power straight to the wheels where you want it. The Passat's clearly come a long way since its launch in 1973, and you could be forgiven for saying that this latest generation hasn't radically changed too much at all, but I think there's a lot of reason why that's a good thing. Just like the way that the car's put together itself, when you consider the sum of the parts of all of the small changes that have taken place, they really do result in a car that has a lot more to offer at its price point and within its segment. It certainly isn't going to be the most exciting car you'll ever own, but you know what? When you put everything together, it just well be the most practical, enjoyable car that you ever own. Is it going to represent a really secure investment for you within the segment that's going to deliver a driving experience that you enjoy and that you'll be happy with for years? I would definitely say yes. In terms of value for money, this is a very busy segment. You have a lot of different cars to look at. But in terms of buying something that you're going to feel happy that you bought, I think you might have to look around for quite a long time to find something that's going to deliver quite as much at the same price point. That's my verdict. Please tell me what you think below. If you have any questions, please pop them there too. Please subscribe. Hope you've enjoyed watching, and we hope we'll see you again soon.